In our society, since we have learned mechanisms on how to feel good, who doesn't want to feel good? We'll spend a lot of money on feeling good, won't we? So when a symptom is making us uncomfortable, it could be an emotional or a chemical thing, it could be a structural thing, then we would look at that symptom and say, well, how do I get rid of that thing? Because that thing is what I'm focused on. This is distracting me, okay? So originally in healthcare, where docs used to go to the house to take care of people, the caregiving was different than what we have developed in an industry where the market is literally feeling good. So compared to feeling good, a symptom that doesn't feel good means it's bad. And I'll use the blunt terms good and bad, like positive and negative, because it's almost like it's black and white. They're drawing a line that if a symptom doesn't feel good emotionally, physically, and chemically, then it can't be a good thing. Remember, symptoms are physical and they're chemical and they're emotional. Please tell me how many people are even speaking about the emotional right now. We want to get rid, and we have been treating the end effect of stress. And whenever we're stressed outside of our bell curve, well, then we must make our body adjust to that stress. So that's what we call adaptation. As we adapt, that means all types of tissues are up and down regulating appropriately based on what our frontal lobe is telling us what is safe and what is the intensity of that reaction we've got to have. So the symptoms that we've been trying to get rid of is really submissing the expression and the cycle between that brain cell tissue cell, with the governor being the emotional values as to what that intensity would be. So as we're submissing that, you realize that we're actually submissing the thing that not very many of us are really addressing. And that is 94% of the influence in our communication, which is nonverbal. So that nonverbal communication, when we block that brain cell tissue cell, that nonverbal communication being, we'll say, hindered even emotionally. We've discussed structural interference to that nerve expression, but what about the emotional block to an emotional or a neurological association? So if we can't interact with the environment based on this perception of feeling good, sounding good, and a lot of energy goes into protecting that, then that loop, in a sense, becomes congested. Okay, and in that congestion, there is an adaptation. That means you're overriding the organic reaction of how these emotions were meant to be expressed. So the symptoms that we are submissing are not merely physical. If you submiss a physical or a chemical alteration, an imbalance or something out of the norm, there is no way out of it but adjusting the emotional expression to that limit. Does that make sense? Wherever that medicine takes you to, even if you're more comfortable but less expressive in that intensity, then you're actually limiting your own expression. So as opposed to labeling all symptoms as negative, remember, all symptoms would be adaptations. To submiss a symptom would be submissing the physical expression of the simultaneous experience of emotions. Does that make sense? So when we get in cycles and loops of the way that we think, we can also create what looks like a category of symptoms that could be listed under a disease. And once you got that label, what do? You start working on feeling better. You see, you have a condition now, okay? Now, meanwhile, those category of symptoms were the adaptation. So once you knock adaptation out, what do we do with the condition? We never resolved it, did we? We never expressed it. As a matter of fact, we repressed it. What will happen to anything being repressed? that it will find another way to express itself. And by the way, we call that the brand new condition that you'll be treating.